was 10 years ago he worked for us.
Camera's live. Your microphone's muted.
Can you tell me if alternate director Sari is here? She was supposed to be here.
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the Community Services Committee meeting for September 9th. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the Coast Salish traditional territory. Although we are all not in person, all of us reside somewhere on their territory, so we are grateful. I'd like to welcome alternate director Justice and alternate director Sari to the meeting. And to begin, we have approval of the agenda? It's been moved and second. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is the adoption of the Community Services Committee meeting minutes of July 8th, 2020.
It's been moved. Second. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
I'm not aware of any business arising from the minutes. And public input period. We have received no submissions.
Thank you. And next we have R1. And we welcome Rob Williams, who will be presenting R1, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one on my screen. So the purpose of the report is that we've presented a bundle of project options for 3 separate grant applications for the ISIP Community Culture and Recreation Program grant. And the 3 facilities that we're looking at is the Couch and Performing Arts Center, the Shawnigan Lake Community Center and Elsie Miles, and the Couch and Lake Sports Arena. And as per Ms. Legault's email prior to the meeting, we actually have some new information from the grant administrators acknowledging that the program's bus for Shawnigan Lake Community Center is ineligible for an expense under the grant, and same with the ice resurfacer for the Couch and Lake Sports Arena. And so we've amended the recommendations based on that information, which does decrease the CVRD's share of funding if we were successful. And if I may, I could read out the new revised recommendations.
Sure, please do. Thank you.
Okay, so the first one stays the same. The second one reads as that a grant application be submitted to the ISIP Community Culture and Recreation Infrastructure Program for the following projects: Elsie Miles roof replacement and replacement of windows and gym floor at Shawnigan Lake Community Center with the CVRD share of up to $94,000 funded from function 464 by short-term borrowing or reserve funds. And the third recommendation is that a grant application be submitted to the ISIP Community Culture and Recreation Infrastructure Program for the following projects: the Couch and Lake Sports Arena, including replacement of the arena refrigeration condenser and exterior arena complex cladding with the CVRD share of up to $175,000 funded from the function 405 Community Lake Recreation Capital Reserve Fund. And I think I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And is that a question, or are you moving it, Director Morrison?
I actually have a question, perhaps for staff, or possibly an amendment to the resolution. Under item 3, I realize that it's saying the $175,000 funded from the 405, the Couch and Lake Recreation Capital Reserve Fund. I would like to include the flexibility that was in the item number 2 above, and add or through short-term borrowing to that resolution. And if that can be done before it's moved, I would like that to be included in the resolution. I would move that that be added to the resolution be moved with that addition.
You're muted, Sierra.
Oh, rookie. Sorry. I've got Director Yanni DiNardo, Director Smith, Director Kuhn. Am I missing anyone? No. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just seconding that motion. And there was a lot of other seconding.
Are there any questions for staff or comments then? Director Smith.
Thank you. I have a question to staff regarding the Saltaire Community Center is not under the Community Services Department, and it's under the Parks and Trails. And I'm just wondering if it was considered for any of these grants. In 2017, the conditional assessment on that building had a $3 million needs, and I'm just wondering if it is considered, even though it's leased out, and if the nonprofit society that leases it would have sufficient funds to fund a portion of a grant.
Thank you. I think Mr. Elzinga put his hand forward to answer that question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just through to Director Smith. The Community Services Department did take the lead on this project grant application. We consulted with other departments, and it was determined that these were the three best applications for projects at this time.
Does that answer your question, Director Smith? It looked like, okay. Are there any other questions for staff? Ready to call the question? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item R2 is a report from Facilities and Transit Division regarding Level 2 electric vehicle charging station management and usage fees at CVRD-owned facilities. And the proposed recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that a usage fee for the CVRD's publicly accessible Level 2 electric vehicle charging stations be established at a rate of $1 per hour effective January 1st, 2021, and that a public notification period of 60 days be provided as described in the September 9th, 2020 staff report pursuant to the inform level of public engagement as specified within the CVRD's public engagement policy.
Was that moved, Director Yanni DiNardo, or do you have a question? It's moved. Do I have a seconder? It's seconded by Director Nicholson. Do we have any questions for staff? I recognize Director Wilson, but then I have Director Kuhn and Director Stone. Go ahead, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the bottom line here, and although this is more of a question as to why we are only charging $1 an hour, whereas the full recovery cost overall is $2 an hour. I have a serious problem with subsidizing other people's running costs as far as this is concerned. So I'm more inclined to, first of all, ask why we're only charging $1 an hour, why we're subsidizing other people, and B, if necessary, I'm quite prepared to make a resolution to amend this one to charge the full amount for cost recovery.
Thank you. So perhaps Mr. Wakeham could answer that question, or I don't see any other staff. Oh, sorry, Mr. Wakeham, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. To Director Wilson, to answer your question here, staff looked at three varying ideas of what we could do to charge a fee. One, and they're all in the report here. One is full cost recovery, which includes the capital. One is partial, and one is minimal. And as it sort of expresses throughout the report here, is that we should also bear in mind that a lot of our services do not have full cost recovery, and most of them at the rec centers don't either. It's really looked upon as providing a sort of accessory service at the facilities. And we also tried to really balance the other fees that are being charged on Vancouver Island, which is quite minimal. If you look at the amount of regions, there is no neighbors close by, none of our local municipalities, whether it's Ladysmith or North Cowichan or Duncan or Lake Cowichan, none of them are charging a fee. Nanaimo is not charging a fee. As a matter of fact, the significant majority of local governments are not charging a fee. So we tried to balance that with some cost recovery and realizing that at some point the capital will have to be replaced. And all we're suggesting is, for consistency with a lot of the other local governments that are charging, that we come in that $1 an hour. But that's our recommendation. The report talked about 3 different options.
Thank you, Mr. Wakeham. Follow up, please.
Go ahead, Director Wilson.
Yeah, I fully understand that, and I'm not sure that in this particular case we should be following what other jurisdictions do, given the present restrictions. It still, to me, comes down to subsidising people's costs for running their vehicles. This is not any kind of recreational thing. This is a personal choice that they have chosen to run a vehicle like that, and to be quite honest, I don't. For 2 things. First of all, I am totally in disagreement with comparing this with other jurisdictions. What they do with their charging stations is entirely up to them. We are in a cash crunch right now, and if we are going to run these things, then we should run them for a full cost recovery. I'll be hopefully being able to make a resolution if I have to.
Thank you, Director Wilson. I have Director Kuhn, Director Stone, and then am I missing anyone? Director McGonigal. Okay, so go ahead, Director Kuhn.
Yes, I think we're tiptoeing about this whole issue. I was surprised even at the 60-day notification period. I can't remember ever having heard from an oil company telling us that, well, we're going to increase the per liter charge on gas in 60 days. Why the hell would we do that with electric vehicles? Maybe we have that obligation, but we're soft pedaling here. And I'm fully in agreement with Director Wilson. We should charge the full charge, and we should do away with subsidizing stuff.
Thank you, Director Kuhn. Next, Director Stone.
I can only imagine how much recreation would cost if we did away with subsidizing stuff. But in this case, I am supportive of cost recovery. I think it's been a little bit of a delayed sort of fallacy that we should be subsidizing electric vehicle stations, especially level 2 stations. Recently, when other regional districts went forward with applications to install a bunch more level 2 stations, it's really a decade old in terms of thought process. Level 2 stations do not have a long-term public use. Those level 2 stations are really, that level of charging is designed for home use, and the amount of time it takes to get any appreciable range, even the most efficient EVs will only gain up to about 35 kilometers for sitting in that parking space for an hour. And at some point, I think that we need to recognize that public infrastructure needs to be DC fast charging, and those charges, again, like that we do at the community center, should be recovered through fees, and people should really be charging at home. And if you can't, then it's like filling up your gas tank. So although Director Wilson and I don't agree on everything, I am supportive of that. Now, the unintended consequences for, say, City of Duncan or for North Cowichan is, and this is then a question to staff, if we were to put what we consider a comparatively prohibitive cost structure in place, if there is a massive decrease in use, how does that impact cost recovery for the capital expenses? That was a question to staff.
Sorry. I can answer that. It's Jim Wakeham here again. Sorry, my connection here kicked out a little bit on the question. I think the question was, if we had massive decrease in revenues from the bus system, how would that affect the capital purchases? Could I just ask you to ask the question, please?
I said if we put a fee structure in place that makes the EV charger usage drop dramatically in favor going to Coy Park or to the Shoppers Drug Mart, for example, because it's still free, and we stop getting people using it at any fee, obviously we won't have the electricity cost, but will that impact our ability to get cost recovery for the capital expense?
Oh, I understand. Sorry. You're right. There's varying items that go into, it's all on page 3. There's varying items that go into what make up the costs. And so you can virtually just go across this. The amortized capital cost is approximately $1,625 a year. If you look at the annual operating costs, they're all gonna vary by each location because of the usage of the cost, but it's approximately just under $2,000 for the general cost. The electricity cost ranges from $1,800 at Couch and Community Center to as low as $300 and change at Couch and Lake. So, you know, if you look at those, and that's why we gave a full, partial, and minimal cost. The idea was, you're right, if we were trying to come up with, first of all, one fee for all 4 locations, because that's one consideration, as opposed to 4 different fees, and staff are not recommending different fees, or recommending one fee. If you were looking for a closer full cost recovery, it would be an average of $2. And so you're right, if there ends up being people not utilizing the electric vehicle stations because they're going to choose to go to ones for free, we're still on the hook to amortize the capital, the annual licensing fee, and the warranty fee. The only savings ultimately you'd have is your electricity costs that range from, it's approximately $1,000 each would be removed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then, so I would say that the only thing I would say it's not directly related to this then is if we want to look at an EV strategy moving forward, it would be a cost recovery model, but with DC fast charging stations, no more level 2s. But that's just as an EV owner and being really involved in the sort of EV crowd. We just talked about this announcement last week from other regional districts talking about all these level 2 stations and just said, why? It doesn't fit today's model for electric vehicles and people should pay for their consumption. So whatever the group decides, I'll go with. But yeah, it's a bigger issue than just the cost recovery here. I think this should be our installations of level 2 charging infrastructure myself.
Thank you. Next, I have Director McConicle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I have no problem with the resolution, but as an interim measure and in the announcement to state that it would be moving forward to full recovery at some future date. That way it's incremental and at the end you have the full cost recovery. I think to do it incrementally will not minimize the usage and may look at prolonging that capital. On the subject of fast chargers, I think that's a subject that we should be looking into on replacement after those capital projects are past their life expectancy. One question I do have through you, Madam Chair, if I may, is there any indication of more placement of charging systems within not just recreation facilities, but other facilities within the regional district?
Is there someone who could take that question? Oh, thank you, Mr. Wakeham.
Yes, so in the report on page 2 at the top, it references that we're assuming that the role is to maintain the existing stations and continue to provide service to customers. At this time, there's no intention for further increase the number of stations or expand into the new area. And the rationale for that is, as many have alluded to, the new batteries, the new vehicles are lasting a lot longer. And in our position, the CVR's role is respect to the stations is assumed by a complementary service to customers. And so we're just simply wanting to maintain a service that we offer now, not add more electric charging stations at the recreation centers. I'm not aware of any other facilities that are publicly available, so whether it's at the parks or a location like that. So at this point, staff's position is not to add any further electric charging stations and put that onus on the vehicle owner themselves, as well as other locations that might be more appropriate where they go fill up. And you're right, most of them are looking for the fast charging, which is going to be a significantly more cost. As most of you probably know, there's only one direct current fast charge station at Couch and Community Center right now.
And a follow-up.
Thank you. Oh, sure, Director McConicle.
Just a follow-up comment, and I would hope with the amount of electric vehicles that are currently being seen throughout the communities that we could look at a strategy to move forward with either replacing those with fast chargers, full cost recovery in the end, and look at implementing new charging stations. If we're looking at reductions of GHGs in transportation, which is the largest emitter of GHGs in any municipality, we have to be serious about it. And a strategy to that effect may be something that we must look at in the future. That's just a comment, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Crothers, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind the remind the committee that we provide the charging stations as a complimentary service to our recreation facilities. We don't have, the regional district doesn't have a service to provide charging stations. We don't have a mandate to provide charging stations to the public. We do this as a complimentary service to those visitors to our recreation centers. So if the committee and ultimately the board was interested in a strategy to expand charging stations, you would want to be giving consideration to a service to be able to provide that outside of our recreation centers.
And if I may, Madam Chair, just one.
Thank you for that. Okay.
I'm just looking at our GHG targets, et cetera, as trying to accommodate some target meeting within that. A future discussion, whether it's at a region-wide or sub-region-wide strategy, that may be something that could be investigated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On my list, I have Director Staples, Smith, Yanni DiNardo. Is there anyone else I'm missing? Mr. Wilson. Okay, so next, Director Staples, please.
I don't have a lot to add to what Director McGonigal was just stating about in his sort of first comment that he made in terms of moving forward, having a better look at how we're going to do this, I think, and have a one cost for the region. I think if we're doing, if Duncan's doing one thing and North Cowton's doing another and the CVRD is doing another at facilities that are literally a block away from each other, that's not going to be what's best for the people visiting our community. So I think that it would be good to have that moving forward. However, that being said, there's also, we have to remember, there is a private sector that is going to start installing electric charging stations. Petro-Canada has committed to doing that all across the country, and I'm sure that others will follow as well. So really, this is sort of an interim until the public sector, or private sector, sorry, catches up essentially. So I'm not sure. I think that needs to be considered in moving forward in the conversations. And we have for a long time in Canada subsidized oil and gas companies, and we're trying to have a transition economy into a more sustainable, healthier product, which is being provided by electric vehicles. And so I feel that the dollar a charge is a good investment for moving forward from a regional perspective.
Thank you. Yes, lots of good points. And I believe that we're veering off the topic a little bit. I know that we're all very passionate about it, and but we'll go to Director Smith.
Thank you. I also believe that the private sector, we need to step away from some areas without putting our taxpayers constantly into, you need to subsidize this and you need to subsidize that. As taxpayers, most people are already subsidizing electric vehicles with the grants that they're receiving from the province and from federal government. So we are already participating as a group in that. I think that the private sector is stepping up, and businesses that are looking for customers are also stepping up. So we need to, in my opinion, move backwards and say that these are the opportunities for entrepreneurs. These are opportunities for businesses within our community to build our community, and that we shouldn't pull our taxpayers down a road to be subsidizing more as we move along. I agree that we should be doing a full recovery at this time. If people choose to go elsewhere, then they go elsewhere. It's just like you go to the grocery store. If it's cheaper someplace else, you choose a different grocery store. So I'd like to see us move away from this program and move into what our mandate is actually for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good discussion here. Sitting on two commissions, that has been always a struggle with these electric chargers. And I believe that if we put $2, they will be going to the free ones for sure. They won't be utilizing them. And I believe that the private sector is stepping up. And that's another reason when we get these, I believe if I could ask staff that these charging stations came as a grant, did they not? So they were an incentive, a grant, or were free to us?
I can comment on that. The original charging stations came as a grant. The charging stations that we just replaced, we got what we'll call a heavily promoted or discounted amount of a little over $4,000. The going rate was almost $8,000. And that's because the capital provider wanted to get out of discontinued hardware, and we had to make a very short response. So we paid approximately $4,500 per station just recently, about just under a year ago.
Yeah. Thank you for that refresher, but I really think that we need to leave it at $1 for now, and the resolution that is already that is, I don't know if it was moved and seconded, but I believe that the $1 would work, because I think that people will be going to the free ones if we move it to $2. So thanks.
Thank you. And it was moved and second. Next, I have Director Morrison, and then I have Director Wilson. Is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak who wanted to? Okay, so I'm going to put you before Director Wilson, Director Sari, and Director Morrison.
Thank you. A number of good points made, and just to reflect back to when these were initially put in, they didn't have, there weren't vehicles with extended ranges. These were absolutely a convenience to patrons, to facilities, and in the Cowichan Lake area. We've got the ones at the arena. I think the town has been a good partner in this and installed some charging stations. I'm not sure where all these free private providers are in the Cowichan Lake area that are going to be installing the quick charge stations in our neck of the woods, but there isn't a whole bunch of free and easy places for people to go to in our community. I think they will come. I look at the resolution that's before us today as a reasonable transition, and quite frankly, in my mind, I don't want to do capital replacement. I want to have an exit strategy so that we're not in this business any longer. But I do believe there's still enough people that are driving Nissan Leafs that if they brought a couple of kids and some hockey gear up to an event at the Cowichan Lake Sports Arena, that $30K that they could get in an hour and 15 minutes might make the difference between them getting home or not. So, I understand we're trying to develop a policy for the whole region, but I think it would be a little bit much to put us up to a $2 full cost recovery when I don't think our commission has any interest in replacing the gear. I think it's our commission would want to get out of the business entirely. So I'm comfortable with supporting the resolution as it sits. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And next I have Director Sari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious. I also agree with the interim $1 an hour charge. I'm just wondering if staff has a plan to increase that, or if the plan is to then remove the stations in the long term.
I can comment on that. Yeah, thank you. The answer at this point is just to put forth a fee that would capture the cost that we just paid for in the capital over 5 years. We have not gone into a strategy of what to do at the end of that lifespan. There's been lots of discussion. Should we carry on? If we do, we obviously would go to a more energized or a faster station, which would be much more expensive, but there could be grants available then. But at this point, staff's position was to implement a fee that we felt was reasonable. We did not have a staging approach. If you wanted to raise it every year or every other year, that's something you could look at.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up? No. And then we go to Director Wilson to close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hearing a lot of the people talking about using the words temporary and transition. It's been my experience in a lot of places that temporary things, as far as local government concerned, seem to morph into permanency. So I'm not happy with those at all. Another one that was used was comparatively prohibitive. Well, compared with what? I'm going to look at these numbers again there, and we would still, even at $2 an hour, according to the table I'm looking at just now, we would still be subsidizing users. Shawnigan Lake would be $2.41 an hour, and according for the full cost recovery, and Cowichan Lake is $5.46 an hour. So if we're charging them $2 an hour, we're still heavily subsidizing those others. I don't like subsidies when applied to somebody who has made a life choice at this time to buy an electric vehicle. And one of the questions that I'd have for Mr. Wakeham is that you're charging for the time period. Now, how is that worked out? For instance, somebody plugs their car in, it reaches full charge, let's say, in an hour, but they leave it there because that's what they've been doing down at the Cowichan Lake, at the Francis Kelsey place down there. So if it stays plugged in for 8 hours, taking up space, is it charged for 8 hours, or is it being charged at the time it actually spends on there? How is this timing achieved? And anyway, leave it at that for the time being.
Thank you. Mr. Wakeham?
Thank you. I'll try and answer that, and I might turn it over to Rochelle Rondeau, who has actually done all of the investigation work, and on the back of this, she might be more able to answer that directly. So we would obviously have to put up signage, just like what we went through with the DC, with both we have the fast charging station at CCC that has a 30-minute time limit. We also have a time limit, I believe I'm not sure if it's 2 hours or 3 hours, currently at the rec centers. And sometimes, yes, they are abused. So my understanding of this is, the person would plug in, it'd be $1 an hour charge. Once the $1 or once the 1 hour hit, it would be up to that person to carry on. If they chose to stay there 2 or 3 hours, they're going to continue to pay. They're going to pay $1 an hour. So that's my take on it. They may not be even getting full charge. Maybe they might not even need that much charge. And there could always be abuse of people parking in these spaces and not necessarily getting a full charge. That is something that every charging station right now is dealing with, and you kind of rely on a little bit of the signage. But if I've misunderstood this, I might ask Rochelle Rondeau, who's also on the webinar, if she can also just advise if I have that correctly.
Ms. Rondeau, did you want to add anything?
Thank you. I don't have much to add, only to say that the numbers that we used were based on active charging time, but using ChargePoint's platform, there is a way to essentially pay or charge a fee for the amount of time that a person is plugged in. So that encourages them to move on and not just sit there idling, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just if I understand that, then as a follow-up, if I could, please.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, then. So the stations are capable of actually charging for the amount of time which are plugged in, as opposed to just leaving it as is. And we have had instances of people just basically plugging them in overnight and leaving them there, and that's the kind of thing that really does tend to rankle a little bit.
Director Wilson, I think that was addressed when we changed the time that people could park there. We've put up signage at all of them, but maybe that I can be corrected on that. But I think right now the resolution on the floor is the $1. There was some suggestion of amendments. I haven't heard an amendment, so I believe we should be ready to call the question. So I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Opposed, we have Director Wilson, Director Kuhn, and Director Smith. Ms. Legault. The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item R3 is a report from the Emergency Management Division on inclusion into the Malahat Fire Protection Service Area. And the recommendation for consideration is that 2 certificates of sufficiency confirming sufficient petitions requesting inclusion into the Malahat Fire Protection Service area be received, and that CVRD Bylaw 2414 Malahat Fire Protection Service Establishment Bylaw 2003 be amended to include 7 properties as listed in the staff report.
Do we have a mover?
Yep.
Moved by Director Salmon, second by Director Stone. Any questions for staff? Was that you, Director Salmon?
No.
Oh, it's just delayed a bit. Thank you. No questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item R4 is another report from the Emergency Management Division on Eagle Heights Fire Protection Area inclusion, and the recommendation for consideration is that it be recommended to the Board that the Certificate of Sufficiency confirming sufficient petitions requesting inclusion into the Eagle Heights Fire Protection Area be received, and 2, that CVRD Bylaw 1965, Eagle Heights Fire Protection Service Bylaw 1999 be amended to include the 2 properties listed in the staff report.
It's been moved. Second. Any questions for staff? I actually have a question for staff. I'm happy to see that these are coming forward. I'm curious. I know that when I first got elected, I was shown the map and shown how big of an area there was that actually had no service. Are we kind of plugging along and doing well and getting everybody in that service? Would that be for Mr. DeJong?
Yes, Madam Chair, these requests come in as requests and we deal with them at the time. So believe it or not, there are many people in the region that do not want fire protection. So we deal them as they come in.
Well, I can ask you this offline then, but I know that you had plans to try and get some of those people into the service. Are we still doing that?
If you're referring to the other area, say Goldstream Heights, yes, there's still a bigger plan for that.
Great, thank you. So call the question. There's no other questions. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item R5, report from the Emergency Management Division regarding Fire Services Automatic Aid Agreement, and the recommendation for consideration is that it be recommended to the Board that the Automatic Aid Agreement between CVRD for North Oyster Volunteer Fire Department and the town of Ladysmith for Ladysmith Fire Rescue to provide fire services during structure fire emergencies be approved.
Been moved. Second. And Director Stone, was that a question? Or just moving it? Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Item R6 is a report from the General Manager of Community Services regarding BC Games 2024-2026 bid, and the recommendation for consideration is that it be recommended to the Board that the invitation to bid for the 2024 winter, 2026 winter, or 2026 summer BC Games be declined.
Thank you. It's been moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, second by Director McGonigal. Any questions for Mr. Elzinga? Director Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I realize we're in a evolving world and things are changing, and we haven't got a real firm grasp on what some of these events may even look like if and when they take place. But I was looking for in the report, and I might have read it, and it seems like it was a week ago when I read it, but is the resolution for the 2026 summer and winter required today? I can understand the rationale for the 2024, but is it absolutely required that we make the decisions on those? I read the reports. I understand the rationale about the volunteer burnout, the organization, all of that stuff. But is there a good reason why we couldn't delay the 2026 decisions for a future date?
Mr. Elzinga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to Director Morrison. The bid process for 2024-2026 has the same deadline of February 2021. So we would have to apply at that time.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff or comments? I see none. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you. Item R7 is a report from Corporate Services Division on Cowichan Community Policing, and the recommendation for consideration is that it be recommended to the board on September 9th, 2020, that a public expression of interest be issued for community policing service delivery in North Cowichan, City of Duncan, and CVRD Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay, in accordance with the annual budgeted requisition amount for Function 496 and the scope of services outlined by the CVRD. And 2, that the scope of services outlined in the expression of interest include speed watch, block watch, neighborhood watch, citizens on patrol, volunteer recruitment, recognition and training, youth engagement, senior engagement, social media presence and coordination with the RCMP, community engagement, and overall crime reduction as the core mandate for the Cowichan community policing function.
And I have Director Yanni DiNardo, Director Staples, Director Wilson. Anyone else? No, first, Director Yanni DiNardo, please.
I was just moving the recommendation.
Oh,
Seconding
what, second by Director Staples.
Yeah, I would second it as well.
You're good. Perfect. And I don't see any questions then. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no other business items, so we'll be moving to question period, and I'll just check the email box here. And there have not been any submissions for question period.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So motion to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded many times. Call the question. All in favor and opposed? All right. See you all at 5 o'clock.
Good job, Matt.
Oh, thanks. Angie, is there a way to